Buddy, Jane here. I read The Only One Left by Riley Sager so that you don't have to.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
All right, so before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of background with my Riley Sager reading so that you can kind of get an idea of where I'm coming from. I am kind of starting to think that Riley Sager may not quite be the author for me. I know that he is super popular. I know that people generally love what he does. I didn't hate this, but I definitely had some frustrations. So, the first book I read by Riley Sager was Home Before Dark. I gave that one a 3-star. And I'll be honest, I kind of had very similar issues with that book as I had with this one. The second book I read was The Lake House, and I gave that one a 4-star. I actually liked the twists that were happening. They were ones I wasn't expecting, and because of the nature of them, I was more willing to go along with, oh, okay, this is just the thing in the book. So this book is about Kit. She was recently, she's a caregiver who was recently accused of leaving out medications for a patient who was her mother, who was terminally ill with cancer, and that patient made the decision to unalive themselves. And Kit has been really struggling with her feelings about the situation and also like being accused of wrongdoing. It was never proven, but the home health aide place that she works for is not wanting to give her, they didn't really want to keep her on, but they did because she'd been proven like not, or they couldn't fire her because they didn't have anything to base, they didn't have a good reason to fire her. So they're keeping her on, but they don't really want her there. So they decide to send her on an assignment that, you know, is technically awful, but needs somebody. So Lenora Hope lives in this town and she is infamous. She is the only living family member of a housewide homicide. So her mother and father were stabbed, and then her sister was strung up by her neck by a rope. And Lenora is the only one left and the presumed perpetrator. So we have a little bit of a Lizzie Borden situation here, which I thought was great. I love this premise. So Kit goes and is taking care of Lenora, and she has some reservations about it. You know, this woman who is now, I believe, in her 70s, she is basically like people have rhymes and poems about her, you know, and she's kind of a boogeyman of sorts. So Kit, as she's taking care of Lenora, is really initially hesitant. She's like, oh, I'm touching a killer. Lenora, we have been told, had polio and then also had a series of strokes. And so she cannot speak. She cannot care for herself. The only thing that she can do is somewhat move her left hand. She did have a nurse before Kit and has had a long string of nurses. The last nurse's name was Mary, and Mary went missing or left under very mysterious circumstances. She left all of her stuff at the house, and she also like didn't say goodbye to anybody or tell anybody she was leaving. She just wasn't there one day. So Kit thinks, this is very interesting. You know, this is kind of a problem. Kit is in the same room that Mary was in. So there is a little bit of like, she's curious about Mary. She wants to understand more about why Mary would just leave this job, if the issue was like Lenora or if it was something else. All right, so I really loved and was really into the setup of this book. I really liked the vast majority of this book. We were sitting at a nice 4-star. It wasn't the most amazing thing I'd ever read. There were times that it was a little bit slow, but overall, I was having a really good time with it. And I was really enjoying myself. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a nice 4-star read. And I think that's my big thing is I love Riley Sager's initial writing. Like, I love the setup. I love the things he does to draw me in. I love the questions he makes me ask. But then close to the end of the book, certainly in like the last quarter, everything just goes off the rails. And my issue, I think, is that there's just too many plot twists in some of Sager's books. And I felt like this was one. This is one where I guessed a couple things that were going on, but this was so much and so over the top that I kind of just felt frustrated with it. All right, so I am going to go into spoiler territory now. I've been kind of not doing that up to this point, but I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to tell you all about like what happened in the book and why I found it frustrating, or the ones that I was okay with. All right, so Kit is there. She is taking care of Lenora, and she gives her this typewriter so that Lenora can tell her story. We find out that prior to the murders, Lenora was pregnant by a household staff member named Ricky, and it is presumed that it was a Ricky who was married to a kitchen maid. Okay, we're kind of given the information that it was this Ricky who was married to a kitchen maid. So Lenora is pregnant, and she's a teenager. Obviously, her family is wealthy, and her father is like he's a big businessman. So this is going to look very bad for the business. Her parents are not happily married. The dad has been having affairs with a lot of the staff members, and Lenora is not the child of her father. She was her mother's child outside of wedlock, and so she was her father's child, or her mother's child outside of wedlock. The dad like paid off the real father because he wanted to marry the mom, and he raised her, like Lenora, like his own. So he marries the mom, he's raising Lenora, and now Lenora is a pregnant teenager just like her mother. The mom is an alcoholic. She spends most of her days in bed. It's not a happy family situation. And the guy who's gotten Lenora pregnant is not showing up as she's like waiting to give birth. There is a lady who's like a governess, and I cannot remember her name, but she is the housekeeper now that Lenora is grown, and but she was the only person who Lenora told about her pregnancy, and she made sure she got medical care and things like that. But also, the dad was having an affair with her, as much as we can tell. Now, I'm telling you like what Lenora tells Kit, and then I'll go into like what is actually happening in all these twists. So, I think her name's Miss Beaton. Yeah, I think the Miss Beaton is the housekeeper and who is currently like over the house. There's also a housemaid named Jessie, who's a character that we need to be concerned about. And there is Lenora's friend, and I think he's like the gardener, and his name is Archie. Like, he's like a handyman. He does work further. So those two, Mrs. Beaton and Archie, are the only staff members that remain in the house after the murders. And then Jessie is new to the household. Not super new, but new enough. And So Kit is kind of surrounded by these people and trying to take care of Lenora. And Lenora is telling her parts of this story with the one hand that she can use to type. And sus things are happening. Like one time, Lenora's wearing a tape recorder because Jessie makes her books on tape to listen to, and so she's put on the Kit put the headset on Lenora and push play, and then she comes back and it's off. But like Lenora couldn't have reached it with the one hand that she has to turn it off. So like something sus is happening. Also, Kit is hearing all this pitter patter stuff happening in the next room. And so she thinks somebody is sneaking in to Lenora's room at night. And Lenora says, no, I think her name's Veronica, the name of her sister, her dead sister. And so, of course, Kit is just like, okay, is this like the stroke? Has it affected her memory? Doesn't she know? Or does she really, or do we have a ghost? I was kind of hoping for a ghost. Do we have a ghost that's coming here and messing stuff up? And what is happening? All right, so here is the twists, because there's just so many. And I think, like, I am all for a really good twist, but I just need one or two. And when we get excessive, and I felt this was excessive, I was over it. Oh, and one other thing, the house is slowly crumbling. And so we've had different things where we know the house tilts, the house is out like on a cliff, and the house is slowly like the cliff under the house is eroding. Which I don't know, like, why are you staying in that house that's eroding? Because like one of the last things that happens in the book during the climax, because of course we have to, is the house just crumbles and people die, but I'm gonna get there. All right. So it turns out, I'm going to complain about all of this, that the woman who Kit has been taking care of is not, in fact, Lenora. Lenora is Mrs. Beeton, who is the housekeeper who takes care of everything. But the person in the wheelchair who is paralyzed is the sister. She was the one who was pregnant, not Lenora. And she gave birth to the baby, and the actual Miss Beeton and her father arranged for the baby to be taken away from her. The baby is taken away. Ricky, who I'll tell you who that is in a minute, but Ricky is not interested in parenting this baby and being her hubby, and he's kind of awful. And so her baby's been taken away, and her mom finds out that this has happened. And her mom, who, as I said, doesn't like the dad, is an alcoholic and has just had it. She kills the dad. The mom kills the dad. Then the boyfriend, Ricky, kills the mom. And then the sister, Lenora's sister, who we've known as Lenora through the entire book, she hangs herself. However, they were able to save her. She didn't die, so they brought her down. And at first, she was in bad shape, but somehow she taught herself. And again, she's a teenager at the time, and she's like 70 right now. She taught herself, like, did her own physical therapy or whatever to teach herself how to walk again. So she's actually not paralyzed. She's not nonverbal. She's not any of the things that she's been pretending to be. She did all that to punish her sister because her sister decided, I'm going to go live my life because people here are thinking I murdered my family. So she went off and had adventures out of the country. She fell in love. She had a life. And then, her sister was here and initially helpless, but like figured out how to take care of herself. And I hate this, okay? I hate the fake illness. I read it in another book last year that I had a lot of thoughts about, and I hated it there too. Like, I have many of the same issues of how could anybody fake paralysis around medical personnel for 55-ish years. And also, like, what are you doing? What are you doing just, like, peeing on yourself? Like, peeing on yourself, pooping on yourself, having people change your diapers? Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Like, you have to have a mental health disorder to just fake that kind of long-term thing. Like, I don't know that you could fake it, but let's pretend that I believe you can fake it with medical personnel, and they don't know. Like, your 24-hour caregiver cannot figure out that you're faking it. Okay, but why? Why would you not want that independence? Why would you just be okay laying there and letting somebody change your diapers and bathe you and not talking to anybody and not interacting with your world and not being able to have any kind of life and do the things that you want, just to spite your sister because she ran off to Europe? Like, and because you hate her and because you're angry with her, it's crazy. So the real Lenora, the real actual Lenora, has been Mrs. Beeton. I think it was Miss Beeton this whole time. The real Miss Beeton raised fake Lenora's, the sister, her baby. She took her baby off to Europe, maybe, and raised her. Jessie, the housemaid, is Lenora, the fake Lenora, the sister's great grandchild. And it's so confusing because, like, Lenora, the character that we know as Lenora isn't Lenora, but we don't really know anything much about the actual Lenora. So, like, Mrs. Hope, maybe I'll just call her Miss Hope because I can't remember if her name's Veronica or what it is, but, or Virginia. It's a V. I think it's a V. Anyway, Mrs. Hope, is Jessie's grandma. So that's why Jessie's making all these things for her to listen to. And her and Jessie decide at the very end that they're gonna run off and, live their life because, instead of Mrs. Hope going, okay, I can walk, I'm gonna go find my son, I'm gonna do this, she's been faking sick. And, like, one of the things we know is she wants to be with her son. We find out that her son has passed away, but he was Jessie's dad. And it's like, for goodness sake, woman, instead of being an invalid, as soon as you could get up and walk, why didn't you go be with your son? Why didn't you go track him down? Why didn't you do any of these things instead of being like, yeah, I'm just going to let people change my diaper. I'm just going to, like, no. Okay. So I hate this twist, and I hate the people who aren't who they're supposed to be, but it feels like every time I pick up a thriller, that is the twist. Somebody is not who they are supposed to be. And I kind of figured I don't know if it was pretty early, but I knew fairly early that something was not quite right and that the person in the chair maybe wasn't Lenora, but I didn't know what had happened to the real Lenora. So, all right, so those twists are bad, but acceptable. Like, okay, it's kind of dumb, but okay. Then we get to the less acceptable twists. The first one, I don't really care about it all that much. But we have Ricky, who was the husband of the housemaid. He wasn't the father of the baby, okay? That Ricky was having an affair with Archie, who is the gardener. And he ran off because after everything happened, he was like, I can't be out and living my authentic life here, married to a woman, when that's not what I want. So the fact that Ricky had disappeared, we found out why. And that him and Archie had been a thing, and that Archie was, like, just best friends with Mrs. Hope, and that's why he stayed. And he knows, I don't think he knows her secret. He knows part of things. Like, he knows who she really is. He knows that is not Lenora. But he doesn't know that she can walk and talk. I don't think so. Yeah, I think the only person who knows is Jessie, I think. The sister doesn't know for sure because she would be really frustrated that she's had to manage this house. The real Lenora is borderline an alcoholic also because she's here, she's dealing with the house. They have people come and, like, like kids run across their lawn and be like, Lenora the killer, and all this ridiculousness. All right. So those were like the twists that I was okay with. It was a lot, but okay. Then we start to get into territory where I was like, this is too much and kind of ruined the book. So, turns out the real Ricky, the father of this chick's baby, is Kit's daddy. Okay? Now, if Kit's dad had in any way helped her get this job, I might have kind of believed it, but he didn't help her get this job. He didn't do anything other than, when he found out she was working for Lenora, he's like, hey, you should come home. But like, and maybe it was once mentioned that he worked there at one point in his youth, but it was just like, okay. So Kit just happens to be sent to work for Lenora, and the not Lenora gave birth to Kit's half brother. Okay. And Jessie is her niece. Okay. Now, not only all that, but Kit's dad was actually the one who took out Kit's mom. So Kit had been drowning in guilt of, she left the medications out. Her mom said she was only going to take one, but her mom took too many. Yeah, Dad orchestrated that. Daddy Ricky, whose real name is Patrick, orchestrated all that. And also, as we're figuring all this out, the house is crumbling, and the actual Lenora, after all this is revealed, she's like, I'm not leaving this house, I'm just gonna die here. And then Patrick goes for the same. So like they both rush into this crumbling house that is crumbling into the ocean. And why? And also, like, would a house really fall that quick? And like, why are we still living in this place if we are at that level of volatile? And like, nothing caused it. It would make sense if like Lenora or somebody had put a bomb somewhere and was like making it crumble, but nobody did that. It just happened to, tonight is the night we reveal all the secrets. And I know it's probably metaphorical and gothic, and like all the secrets of this house and the terrors that happened here have been revealed. So now it can crumble into the ocean. But like, no. So then, of course, part of stuff has been revealed. And then Kit brings Mrs. Hope home, who she now knows her identity, brings her home, and then Jessie breaks her out. And instead of being like sitting there and telling her and be like, hey, she's like, she runs off with Jessie, and then they send Kit a plane ticket and are like, hey, come join us, because you're probably not going to get another job as a caregiver, and you're Jessie's aunt. So yeah, it just is so much. And I think I don't like that with Riley Sager. I feel like Riley Sager has great ideas, but then he almost overdoes it, because I had the same issue with too many twists at the end of Home Before Dark. So Home Before Dark, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but there's a really cool twist at Home Before Dark that I really liked. And then the next twist is, sucker, that's not what happened. And I was like, this would have been so much better if you'd have just gone with the first twist instead of the second twist, which was kind of dumb. And then then there was the third twist, and the third twist was even worse. And I kind of felt like this again about this book. Like, if we just had the twist of, hey, this isn't Lenora and they're not paralyzed, would that have made me super happy? I don't love the characters pretending to be somebody they're not, and I don't like the fake sickness. Like, those are just not tropes and reveals that I like, but I see that a ton in thrillers. And so, I mean, I guess so, but Kit's dad being the father, and there being no reason that, it just happens to be. It just happens to be. Like, I just have an issue. I have an issue with that many coincidences. And I don't know, guys. I enjoyed the journey. But then at the end, it just was like, I knew that the girl in the chair was not Lenora. And I suspected that she was, to some degree, faking her illness. And I would have much rather had a ghost. Just being honest, I would have much rather had a ghost. That would have been cool. What we got, I was not very impressed with. Now, maybe this is not bad. It just wasn't for me. I wanted more from it, and I'd heard such good things, and I liked the beginning, and I liked the premise, and I just wanted more. I just wanted more from this, and I didn't like the excessive amounts of twists at the end. All right, guys, that's kind of my thoughts on that. If there are Riley Sagers that aren't completely off the rails with twists that you think I would enjoy, or I'll be really honest, if they have like the kind of twist the Lake House had, like I was not expecting. I didn't know that the twist we were doing with the Lake House was within the realm of possibility of the twist that we could be doing in that story. And I wasn't mad about it. I thought that was actually brilliant. I wasn't expecting that. I hadn't really read enough Riley Sager to know that that would be possible. So I was like, oh, okay, we're taking that twist. I can go with that. And like, I was hoping that we had a ghost or something, because that would have been a cool twist. But the twist that we had, I felt meh about, and I felt like there were too many. And I liked the idea, but I also hate the twists that were done. And I don't necessarily believe that there's a good reason for somebody, even spite, even anger at their sister, to spend 50 some years being an invalid. You know, having somebody literally wipe your butt. And it's like, what is wrong with you? That, you know, we're supposed to be sympathetic to this character because, you know, she had her baby taken away and all this other stuff. But I don't know. She just made bad choices. And like they talk about a hell of your own making. Like, she was in a hell of her own making. Any freaking time she could have gotten up, gotten out of her chair, and gone and lived her life. But no. And that made me so mad. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this whole thing. I really didn't like that part. And I didn't like all the extra twists. And I just kind of felt frustrated with the whole thing. Leave me a message if there's any Riley Sagers that I might enjoy better. I want to love Riley, guys. I do. I love the ideas. Riley's books always excite me. I look at the premise and I'm like, yeah, this could get awesome. And then it's just, it hasn't worked great for me. The Lake House worked the best, and I didn't love that. But this just was too twisty. All right. Have you read the book? Did you feel like there was too many twists, or did you think for you that was just the right amount of twists? Is this just Riley being Riley, or was this an excessive amount of twists for a Riley book, a Riley Sager book? Let me know in the comments. If you aren't sure what else to put, just leave an emoji with a stack of books. All right, guys, it's been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.